My original intention was just to do a Shakespearean adaptation, hence the collecting text from his sources. We did a reading, and yet the play didn't feel complete. So I went away, did some more research, and I started to discover these women who weren't even published. One of the quirks, specifically of European history, is that for a woman to be literate, she was most likely noble. It was very rare for a woman who was born below the nobility to be able to learn to read. Even in convents and other places, other religious houses, it was very rare for women who weren't noble to be able to read at those schools. So the women who were able to write were almost across the board, with a few exceptions like Christine de Pizan, whose father was an author. Almost across the board, these were noble women. But noble women could never publish. That was beyond disgraceful. So they would write out these handwritten manuscripts and just pass them around. One of the manuscripts that I found is Sarah Cowper, who wrote literally a history of the world. She started back in Eden and went through all of world history, which basically meant Europe and Turkey and, you know, a little bit of Ireland. But she passed around this handwritten manuscript following the entire history of the world, but never published it. So I got to find women like that, and I started weaving their voices in, and I had another workshop, this really looking at the women's voices. And I started to realize that this isn't a historical story. This isn't a story about the historical curiosity of women surviving this brutal ongoing war, both in England and in France. I started to find out that this play is actually about women. How do we feel about women in power? What tools do women have to fight for who and what they love? And a lot of those questions are still being asked today. So after that workshop, I started to weave in more contemporary voices. I did one more, and this time I realized that the questions don't just apply to women. I was working with these amazing actors who had sisters and wives and girlfriends and daughters, and the questions of how do we live in a society that's struggling to be equal and is so often violently unequal. And I realized that they're struggling with it too. So out of that workshop, we have this new complete piece, Margaret I. And this new Margaret I uses Shakespeare's text. It used some of the unpublished women from about 1100 AD to about 1800 AD. But it also uses a lot of contemporary text. It uses my writing of the actors' words, of the actors talking about their everyday experiences, from catcalling when we're working on Eleanor's scene to the silence around assault. Margaret I is now a play that uses both contemporary and historical text to dig into the issues that we're still dealing with today. It uses the 15th century as a prism for what we're working on now.